Sí, se ha ido. Sí.
Mario, where are you, Mario?
Bathroom.
He's in the bathroom?
No.
He's having coffee.
No. Agua.
Agua.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, escuchaste el tweet de Zwica.
Yeah.
We finished on time.
You finished early.
Yeah, for a change.
Mem Vav 46.
Are we learning when are we learning tomorrow? Sorry.
Tomorrow we're going to learn 8 in the morning.
Can
Oh,
you play
boy.
golf tomorrow?
Well, I'm sure you can squeeze it in.
Possible in the afternoon,
In between two.
No, afternoon you can't. I don't have a tea time. Okay.
In between two urinals, you can do it.
a Mem Vav. So we're talking about the water that's in the clouds. So whether it was Koine Shvisa. So yesterday the Gemara ended up saying, well, it's not really water in the clouds. It's something. The vapor is the vapor, and it wasn't water until it came down in the rain. So then says we have another problem. Kol shekain davaluhu noilad dasiri. Well, then if it's not considered water in the clouds, and it's only considered water on Yontif when it rained, well, you've created a new thing that's noilad, and it's going to be muktzah, machmas noilad. You shouldn't be able to use the water at all. So the Gemara changes its opinion. Elamaya ba'avim. There is water in the clouds. It's not that it was created on Yontif. The only thing is the water there is meinid naidi. It's moving around all the time in there. And something that's moving around cannot be koine shvisa. It's got to come to rest to be koine shvisa. Oh, hashtados lachi. Now that you gave me that answer, you started off this whole debate by saying the water that came from the oceans through evaporation is way beyond the 2,000 amas tchum from where it is now. We shouldn't be able to use it. That's not a problem because of kianis nami lo likshilach. My but kianis nami main at 90. Water in the ocean is also not stationary; it's always moving, and therefore it's not koine shvisa there. Vitanya naharos amoishkenu ma'inoisa noivim. Let's say you have flowing rivers or springs. So it's not that they've been koine shvisa, and therefore they only have 2,000 amas from that location. Because they're not koine shvisa, because they're in movement. Harein karagli koladam. The din is, whatever person picks up the water in a bucket from there, it follows that person's tchum. And so there's a raya that moving water doesn't create its own tchum. Amar Rav Yaakov Bar Yidi Amar Yeshua ben Levi. Halacha Rav Yochanan ben Nuri that
He grants a sleeping
you have
person.
2,000 amis, somebody who's sleeping and he wasn't awake at the time Shabbos came in, he's no worse than an object which you can transport 2,000 amas. Here as well, you can, the halacha is mekel like Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. He doesn't just get daled amas. Omer Rav Yaakov bar Yidi, beferish shmielach or mechlol shmielach. Did you hear directly that the halacha is like, or did you deduce it? Omer lei beferish shmielach. I heard it directly. Now, my klala, what general principle could you have deduced from? Omer Rav ben Levi. Halacha kedivrei hamekel be'eruv, because there's another statement in the name of Rav ben Levi that the halacha is always like the mekel, the one who's lenient by dinim eruvin. So the Gemara says, "V'tarti lamali." Why do I need it to be stated by Rav ben Levi that halacha Rav Yochanan ben Nuri? And why did he have to make another statement? Halacha kedivrei hamekel be'eruv. Why do I need both? Amar Rav Zera tzrichi. I need it. The Yashim halacha Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. If all you would have told me was the halacha Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, havamina bein lekula bein lechumra. It could have been by Clay Hefker, he was machmir. So we're not machmir. We're makel in both cases, both by the sleeping person and by Clay Hefker. Kamash Balan halacha kedivrei mekel be'eruv. The lame halacha kedivrei mekel be'eruv. Halacha Rav Yochanan ben Nuri lamali. Again, why say both? It's true. I need it. When do we paskin halacha like Rav Yochanan ben Nuri if it's one against one, or many against many? Aval yachid b'makom rabim. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri was arguing with the Chachamim, single versus plural. Maybe we don't paskin like him. Aim alone by the divrei hamekel. So we have to say we paskin beferish like Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. Eruvin derabanan. Listen, all of these dinim of Eruv is only rabbinic. Mali yachid b'makom yachid, mali yachid b'makom rabim. We always are lenient by rabbinic halacha. So what would we care if the yachid was against the rabim, but the yachid was mekel? We would also paskin like the yachid. Amarei Rav Papa l'Rava. Rav Papa says to Rava, "You're not correct." You want to tell me that by rabbinic law we make no distinction, one against one versus one against the public? We'll see that they do make a distinction. Vatnan, Rav Lazar Omer. We have a sugya in Masechta Nida that we learned very extensively. The machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whether when a woman sees blood, is she daya shaita? Do we only say now, whatever food or tahara she works when becomes tamei, or do we go back retroactive 24 hours, like Beis Hillel? So a woman, kolisha shavra aleh shalosh anais, if a woman went through 90 days, 3 periods of 30 days where she didn't see blood, so daya shaita. So Rabbi Lezer says, now if she sees blood, we don't go back 24 hours, we go forward. Vitanya Maisav Asra Meir Rebbe Rabbi Lezer. And one time, Rebbe paskin like Rabbi Lezer. La'achar shenisker, after he remembered Omar, Kedayu Rabbi Lezer lismoch alav b'shas adchak. You know what? We can rely on Rabbi Lezer in an emergency. Now, what is this my la'achar shenisker? What do you mean after he remembered? Who did Rabbi Lezer argue against the sages? That was Yachid against Rabbim. Now, if it's true that we always paskin like one or the other, if the halacha is always like the public or like the majority, why would he say in an emergency you can rely on Rabbi Lezer? We don't paskin like him. Rather, it wasn't clear who the halacha was like. After he remembered that it wasn't an individual Tana that argued with him, but it was Rabbanon. So you see, they don't always follow the rule by rabbinic law that that there's a difference between Yachid versus Rabbi. And the Gemara brings another proof. Some people say Rav Nachman Yitzchak l'Rava. Uvid Rabbanon lo shani ben Yachid ben Mokum Yachid ben Yachid ben Mokum Rabbi. You never see a difference by rabbinic law regarding one against one versus one against multiple. I'll show you that we do. Vatanya. Shmua Krova, Noheges Shiva Shloshim. You hear about the death of a person in your family. So if it's a Shmua Krova, which we will define what that is, the moment you find out, you have to keep Shiva and you have to keep Shloshim. If it's a Shmua Rechoka, if it's you only heard after a long period of time, then the Avelis is Ein Nohegas L'Yom Echad. And the Brisa goes on, Ezohi Krova ve'ezohi Rechoka. What's considered hearing about it early, and what's considered late? So Besoch Shloshim Krova, hearing about a death within 30 days of an immediate family member. So then in a Chanami, you have to keep Shiva and Shloshim. Div Rabbi Kiva. The Chachamim Oimrim, whether you heard something within 30 days or not, no Heges Shiva Shloshim. You're Shiva and Shloshim. The Amram Rachana Rav Yechon Kol Makom Shata Motza Yachid Mekel, the Rabbi Machmirim. Whenever you find that an individual is lenient and the Rabbi are Machmirim, the Halachic they were Machmirim. Hamarubim. Chutz mizu, except for this case. Sha'afa bish Rabbi Kiva mekel v'chacham machmir, and we normally go like the machmir. Halacha k'div Rabbi Kiva. Why? Because v'sarvala kishmuel damar Shmuel halacha k'div Rabbi mekel be'evel. We always are lenient by avelis. That's ba'avelis who that kili b'rabbanon ba'alma. But in all other cases, afilu b'rabbanon shani ben yachid ben kom yachid ben makom rabim. So we see another example by rabbinic law where there is a difference between whether there's one person arguing with the Tana versus multiple. Now, so we said that the halachas are Rav Yochanan Nuri, and we said that the halacha is like the mekel by Erev. So why do I need both? Rav Papa Yitztrich, I need both. So I'll get that. I mean, Hanamili, Be'eruv Chatzeros. You know, maybe we're mekel by Eruvin by Erev Chatzeros. When you put together different courtyards that you can carry in. But maybe we're not mekel by Erev Tchumim. So tzricha, so we have to be told that the halachas Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. Where do we see this precedence that there's a difference between the dinim of Erev Chatzeros, the dinim of Erev Tchumin? It's not. On Rav Yehuda. But Madvar are more in that a person has to know and agree to participating in an Eruv. That's Be'eruv Tchumin. Aval Be'eruv Chatzeros Ma'arvin Ben Ladas Ben Shalol Ladas. When it comes to making an Eruv between multiple Chatzeros, you don't need the consent and even the knowledge of the person who lives in one of the Chatzerim. There's a reason for that. Shezachin la'adam shelo b'fanav, ve'ein chavin la'adam ela b'fanav. Meaning, by Erev Chatzeros to be allowed to carry into multiple Chatzeros, that's always a schus for somebody. But laying down a tchum, where maybe he by now forcing him to go 4,000 amas in one direction and zero distance in all the other directions, maybe he doesn't want that. So there's a principle, ein chavin l'adam ela b'fanav, so you can't do it without his das. So that's Rav Papa. Rav Ashi gives us a different teretz as to why we need the Gemara to say halacha is like Rav Yochanan ben Nuri, and the halacha is like the makel by Eruvin. So, for example, when you lay down an eruv, there's a need to have a certain minimum amount of food. But if the food gets eaten up, as long as even there's a kolshu remaining, the eruv is good. But when do we say that? That's b'shiuri eruv. Aval b'tchilas eruv emelo. But when you lay down an original eruv, maybe it's not kolshu. So we have to be told that the halacha works both by eruv chatzeros and eruvei tchumin. Where do we see that there's a difference between when you first lay down the eruv versus when later on? This now we have a Mishnah. Rav Yosi, when do we have a shear? He has a minimum shear. That's when you first lay down the eruv. If now it's after the time when you made the eruv, and there's even a crumb left, and if you're making eruv chatzeres, there's a crumb for each person. That's enough. The low onru l'eruv chatzeros. When they made a big eruv in the city, and that you can carry, so why did you need this whole din of eruv chatzeros anyways? Otherwise, people would forget the whole din of eruv chatzeros. Rabbi Yaakov Rav Zika Amru that in creating rules for how to paskin, halacha k'Rabbi Kiva mechaveru. When Rabbi Kiva argues with his colleagues, it's always like halacha is always like him. But that's with an individual. U'Rabbi Yosi mechavei rav. When Rabbi Yosi argues even with multiple people, the halacha is always like Rabbi Yosi. U'Rebbe mechavei rav. When Rebbe argues with an individual, the halacha is like Rebbe. L'may hilchasa. Ravasi Omer halacha. That's to publicize. This is how we paskin. Rav Chia bar Ava Omar, no matin. Matin means no mamish paskin like that. Ella, we lean that way. We don't necessarily publicly announce it, but somebody comes and asks us, we will paskin like that. To him, Rabbi Yosef Nirin. Nirin is you won't publicize the psak, but if they did like Rabbi Yossi, we don't change the facts of the case. We let it be. We let it be. Kalosh Razam Rav Yochanan Bar Rav Yochanan that Rab Meir Rab Yehuda Allah Rab Yehuda. Whenever there's a debate between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda, the halacha is like Rab Yehuda. Rab Yehuda, Rab Yosi. When there's a debate between Rab Yehuda and Rab Yosi, halacha Rab Yosi. And vein sarach lona Rab Meir, Rab Yosi, halacha Rab Yosi. Because Hashim Malcolm Rab Yehuda lessa. If we didn't pass it like Rab Meir against Rab Yehuda, and Rab Yehuda lost against Rab Yosi, Malcolm Rab Yosi, but boy, there's no shaila when we debate Rab Meir versus Rab Yosi. On Rav Asi, Af ani loy made Rab Yosi, Rab Shimon, halacha Rab Yosi. That when Rab Shimon argues with Rab Yosi, we pass along Rab Yosi. Dam Rav Abba and Rab Yochanan, Rab Yehuda, Rab Shimon, Allah, Rab Yehuda. That in debates between Rab Yehuda and Rab Shimon, we pass along Rab Yehuda. Ashta, b'makom Rab Yehuda less, b'makom Rab Yosi, boy. So there's no shaila that Rab Shimon would lose against Rab Yosi. Well, what about Rab Meir, Rab Shimon, my Teku? So it's not clear. Rav Mishashe, less nolah neklala. You know what? All of these rules that we just quoted, you don't rely on them. And you pask in each case individually. Minole Rav Misharshe hoy. Where did you Rav Sharshe get that? Maybe from the following Mishnah. Our Mishnah, the case of three people being in the same tchum, 4 amas of each other, is like a case of 3 courtyards that open up to each other. And we said, if ervu shtayim, hachitzonos I am sorry. So if you A, B, and C made an erv with B, so B is mutar simayan with A and C. Ve'ein mutar sima. A and C is mutar with B, but ushtayim hachitzonos asur zum zu. But A cannot go into C's chotzer, and C cannot go into A's chotzer. Arav Chabar Girma Rav, Halachic Reb Shimon. Now, Uman Paligale. Who's the bar plucked of Reb Shimon? Reb Yehuda. I thought you told me Va'aber Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, Halachic Reb Yehuda. So and yet here we pass Reb Shimon. Ela Shmamina, less new. We don't follow these rules. Think about my question. What kind of? I can solve your problem. Dilma. Heichadi itmar itmar. That means if you have a befershtik halach like here where it says itmar halach Rab Shimon, so fine. But where you don't have a statement, then we follow the rules. Heichadi lo itmar lo itmar. So there's no riot from there. Elameha. So rather the proof that you don't follow these rules is from this nan. Ir shel yachid v'naseh shel rabim. A private person built a city, and then he gave it over to the public. The din is Marvin is kula. Such a city, you can make an erev in the whole city. But if the city started off shel rabim, and then the guy took it over from the city, it becomes a private city, the nasr shel yachid, a Marvin is kula, then you can't make an erev in the city. Ela imkein osa chutzelo ki ir chadash shel Yehuda. Unless that person builds sort of a new suburb outside of that city as big as the city in Yehuda. Sheyesh ba chamishim diyur, that there are 50 inhabitants there. Did Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Oimer, you don't have to build it that big. Shalosh chatzer shel shnei batim. As long as you build 3 courtyards each with 2 houses, that's enough. Okay, so tomorrow we'll learn at 8 o'clock.